Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Helen of Windhorn. This is a new book from Dark Horse Comics. I had the pleasure to read an advanced copy of this book, and let me tell you, I am very excited for a lot of reasons, including the creative team. So let's take a look at the creative team, and then we'll get into this book. This book is written by Tom King with art by Bilkis Evely, colors by Mateos Lopez, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Now, if that team sounds familiar, it's because they also worked together on Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, which is one of DC's, I would say, best regarded Supergirl stories of recent as well. So much so that, of course, it is being turned into a movie, or at least being used as an adaptation. But let's talk about Helen of Windhorn. Let me give you a quick synopsis here before we get into the actual review. From Eisner Award winning and best selling creative team of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comes this gothic sword and sorcery epic that's Conan the Barbarian meets the Wizard of Oz. Following the tragic death of her late father, C.K. Cole, the esteemed pulp writer and creator of the popular warrior character Othan, Helen Cole is called back to her grandfather's enormous an illustrious estate, Windhorn House. Scarred by Cole's untimely passing and lost in a new strange world, Helen wreaks drunken havoc upon her arrival. However, her chaotic ways begin to soften as she discovers a lifetime of secrets hiding within the myriad of rooms and hallways of the expansive manor. For outside its walls, within the woods, dwell the legendary adventures that were once locked away within her father's stories. Uh, yeah, this is such a cool premise. And we'll get into a lot of that stuff. But overall, just like from the premise, like the fact that Helen's father was an author that was telling all these really cool fantasy, sorcery, like sword and sorcery stories. Um, but all that kind of comes from inspiration, maybe from the plays that he grew up in. All that mixed in with we have a pretty good, a cool framing device of like somebody retelling this story of Helen of Windhorn through somebody that knew her. We'll get into that in a little bit, and then also just all that wrapped up in this gigantic mansion that feels like a never-ending labyrinth of rooms. And there's not a lot of characters in the book, but the characters that we have are so well defined. They're very interesting, and of course our protagonist Helen is just uh, it's a very much of an unlikely hero, a reluctant hero, at least as far as we have on this first issue. um yeah, so it's very interesting. Now, all that is already very cool, but then you add the layer of Bilkis Evely's beautiful, beautiful art. It is so fantastic. Let's go take a look at some of that preview art so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, just starting off from the first page, like, what an amazing way to kick off your book. Like, just this first page is really making a statement about what the story that we are about to embark on is. And then it's beautifully followed up with like, oh yeah, this is just like, it's a book or a graphic novel of like these characters. And then we see here, um, as we follow through this character, and I don't want to give away too much of who they are, but just know that they are somebody that was somebody that was in charge of Helen during all these events. I'll say. So yeah, just the changing colors, beautiful. Like Mateos Lopez's colors are amazing. I love how they just really build out the world. They make things pop, and of course, Bilkis Evely's art. So many lines, so detailed. I think specifically like in the hair, as you see here, the wrinkle lines in her face, the detail in the background. Like this kitchen looks like it's a lived-in place. Um, Even the little cat on the chair. There's so much. I spent a lot of time looking at just the art here. And then we flash back, right? We flash back to the time of Helen, and when we're picking up in that story. Um, I think starting off in like in Texas really sets this apart from anything that you would expect in a fantasy book. But of course, the setting will change throughout the first issue. So there was really like just touching a lot of different genres. Like, was this going to be a western? Is this a fantasy? Is this a horror book? Is this a gothic novel? Like, it just, everything in here just really really cool. And then what a best what a better way to introduce our protagonist than to find her passed out in jail. So yeah, it's just very exciting to get into something like this. So I think if you enjoyed Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, with all its different trappings and explorations of the fantasy genre, and Supergirl also kind of internally dealing with a lot, this takes a lot of those concepts and just escalates them to the next level. It really, we follow up with a lot of those same themes, and I think maybe this book was. I haven't really seen a lot of interviews from the team, but I can definitely see the influence of like, this is a cool story. It's a really interesting way to tell this approach this world. So let's kind of do something where we have full control and just explore just further every corner, like almost as if Tom King and Everly want to go through every room in that gigantic house that they have built. Um, and also, I went into this book not having read anything about it. I haven't read the synopsis. I hadn't read anything. Like I said, I've been pretty much staying away from anything because I wanted to really experience this like completely new. And when we get to the last few pages, the book just blew my mind. Like, I didn't know what to expect, but I was met with a wonderful surprise and a great big hug that I'm just really excited to get into the next issue. Um, Dark Horse has put out a lot of really cool covers. I think that I'm gonna have a hard time deciding on what to pick up on Wednesday. But I highly recommend you check this out. As I mentioned, if you're a fan of the Supergirl book, you want to check this out. If you're a fan of either of these creators, this is probably some of their best work to date. And this is just from one issue. And then also, if you're a fan of gothic stories, or horror stories, or fantasy stories, like, I think this has a little bit of all that stuff mixed in, so it's really really cool. So yeah, hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Crave number 4. This is a new book from Image Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team. So this book has story and art and writing. Everything is done by Maria Levitt, which is really cool. You don't often see, especially mainstream comic books, completely done by one individual. And Maria Levitt just continues to surpass everything that's been set up in previous issues. I'm very excited for this one. In this issue, David, Alexandra, Albert, and Sophia are shocked by the events of the previous issue. They need a landline to call Kay. So they've been kind of isolated in the college, right? So they take refuge in Alex's friends Dega, an eccentric fetish fashion designer and tarotist, somebody who reads the tarot. Kay reveals some shocking truths about Crave, and they make a plan to stop the app. This is it. I like that our characters are finally like kind of fed up with everything that the app's been doing, and they're now doing something about it. The book continues to just be a mixture of like this really intriguing mystery, all these interpersonal relationships kind of being fleshed out, right? I think a lot has happened to these characters in the last few days, and of course continues to just be something that's enticing and very beautiful art all throughout. So this really has a lot of stuff going for it. Let's talk about the art. So let me pull up some of the preview pages. Now, I believe I've said, and this book is rated mature, so like, be advised. But yeah, just Maria Lovett's like the way that she does a lot of the faces and expressions. Although they're not super detailed, you can definitely just feel what's going on. We're introduced to this new character who can finally help them. Interesting that they would have to get away from technology to stop technology, and yeah, just everything that happens in this shop. It's really fun because we have some reveals of like what's going on with this app, what is it doing, where does it come from, all this while Dega's like kind of, I guess, doing a reading of the tarot to see how this situation is gonna play out. So there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of hints and some stuff that you might miss if you're not really paying attention. So yeah, very very cool stuff. Beautiful covers at the end of the video. So stay tuned for those. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Pine and Merrick Mac issue number 3. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Carl Starks with illustrations by Fran Galan, letters by Pat Brousseau. Um, man, if you wanted this to focus a lot more on weird stuff and the cult and like all the weird trappings that we have been presented in this story, this is the issue for you. Things highly escalate in this one. Let me give you a quick synopsis for this one. Small town detectives Linnea and Parker have discovered something big and sinister, and they're on the run for their lives. Unable to return home and without a safe corner to hide in, an unexpected figure offers a symbol of hope that may lead them somewhere. Um, yeah, this book continues to just kick ass as far as like the mystery and everything that the team has set forth. Um, but I think my favorite part about this book continues to be the relationship between Linnea and Parker, right? We start off, and in the preview pages, you'll see we kick off with a little bit of like a flashback to a previous case, and you can kind of see why they decided to move on from the big city, uh and that you can't read the dialogue in the previews that Boom put out, but you know, there's a lot of thought that went into Linnea leaving the line of work that she was in. As you can see, some of these cases were a little bit too much, uh but the best part is that when she makes that decision, Parker doesn't even hesitate to make the change that will be better for them. Like, just I love Frankelin has just the way that he captures the body language for these two characters. Like, even without any dialogue on these pages, and I'm kind of glad now that the previews don't have any dialogue. You can just kind of tell, like, obviously Lenny is upset. There's something on her mind. Parker knows it. He notices it. Like, just going through the panels, you can tell everything that's going on in the story, right? And Parker is going to address it, and he's supportive of whatever they need to do. And then just look like this last panel of them looking at each other. What a beautiful way to tell a story. Like, even without the dialogue, uh, this is just hitting things out of the park. And this is like that's my favorite part. I love the mystery and I love the cult stuff and I love all the weird stuff that happens later on. But their relationship is just yeah, their relationship is just what I'm really enjoying the most. I kind of just want to know that these guys are going to be okay. That's what kind of raises the stakes when they are in trouble, right? So very excited to continue to read this. I think Kyle Starks and Frank Galan are just giving us something that feels different, something that feels new, but something that still feels very wholesome and full of wacky adventures as well. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we'll be doing a review for The Last Mermaid #1. This is a new book from Image Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team here. Uh, this book is written with story and art by Derek Kurt Kim. So one single individual working on the whole book. This is, as you can see from the cover, the dimensions of the pictures. This is a magazine size book. So if you're into that, I think you're really going to enjoy how much of the art we get to expand on. Let me give you a quick synopsis for this. In this book, a lone mermaid roams an endless wasteland on a quest beyond reason. To press ever onward, she must survive the interminable stretches between tiny pockets of water, the roaming bands of cybernetic cannibals, and fearsome mutant beasts. What propels her forward to take on such a risk? This is one of the coolest post-apocalyptic concepts I've seen in a long time. Um, we have this mermaid that kind of lives in this little water bubble, and at the beginning of the book, we see this as a little bit of a like a vehicle that's kind of in the desert. But as we move on, as you can see from the cover, it's actually like a mech. kind of vehicle. So that's really cool. Like overall, that's just an amazing concept. We also have a running clock, which we'll see. Like her water needs to be refreshed and inside because she is a mermaid. She's got a little friend, an axolotl, I believe it's called, which is adorable. And then of course the art, even though this type of art is not my favorite for a book, it is something to behold. So let me pull up some of the preview art here. And I just want you to like these the first two pages are a two-page splash. So you can see how beautiful the artist is taking advantage of the extra room because of the format. And then just the shots introducing our main character. There's not a lot of dialogue throughout the first issue, so you could probably go through it very quickly, but I think you really want to take your time and enjoy the art. I also love the contrast of the colors, especially the color palette of like everything outside in this like desert barren land, and then as you go into the tank, of course, it's very different, right? More of a cool green tones. As I mentioned, there is a running clock in our story because she's running out of time with the water toxicity levels rising. So there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but I think this is a beautiful, beautiful setup for a first book. And also, how did she get this mech suit? Like, I just want to know. I want to know everything. I want to know more about this mermaid. So, very excited to have read this. Um, if you want to hear a little bit more, you can check out my friends over at the I Read Comic Books podcast. Mike talked about this in the latest episode. I'll drop a link in the description for that. So, if you have read this, let me know what you thought about it. Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Thundercats number 2. This is a new book from Dynamite Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Declan Shalvey with art by Drew Moss, Chiara De Francia and Martina Pignadoli on colors, letters by Jeff Eckleberry. Um, I'm very excited for the second issue of this series. I think the first issue was so much fun to read. Really brought me back to the old times of the Thundercats. Really recaptured what I thought was cool about these characters, but also evolve them and change things enough that it's really fun to kind of jump back and figure out what this new story is going to be. Let me give you a quick synopsis before we get into the review. In the aftermath of her first battle with the mutants, Lionel attempts to use the sight beyond sight to ask for guidance from their lost leader, Jaga. The vision he receives instead is the Thundercats discovering another Tendarian survivor on Third Earth. Meanwhile, Slythe and his mutant band have discovered the Pyramid of Mumra, and they're about to learn firsthand how dangerous the ever-living one can be. This is all brought to you by Red Hot writer Declan Shelby and acclaimed artist Drew Moss as they ramp up the excitement for the second chapter in the all-new Thundercat adventure. We'll see some really cool covers at the end of the video, which will include David Nakayama, Lucio Aparicio, Jay Lee, and of course Declan Shelby himself. So, yeah, this issue was a lot of fun. I think the way the last issue left us with Lionel pretty much losing everything that he had been working for, right? He's already dealing with a lot. He grew up unexpectedly. He lost his mentor in Jaga. And now the Sword of Omens has been destroyed, or at least is broken for the moment. Things are not looking good. He doesn't have a good support system because everyone is really just trying to get caught up on everything they're doing. Um, I do love how Moss brings the emotion out in these characters. I think when you have anthropomorphic characters like the Thundercats, sometimes the emotions can be hard to capture in their faces. But Drew Moss really efficiently uses their body language, and of course with the coloring by the team also really helps wash over that tone of sadness and dread and confusion and all the stuff that's going on, as well as the part with the mutants and Mumra is also very interesting. Mumra is just such a cool character and such a good villain that I can't wait to see how we evolve in that series. So Let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As you can see here, the first few pages we have Lionel dealing with the loss and also seeking the guidance of the sword or the eye of omens. Um, and yeah, I mean, we get to see. I like that there's this red glow around it, and even all the dialogue is changed to red lettering when you're seeing everything through the eye. That's pretty cool. Like because in the series, I believe it would all kind of look like a red glow as well, like it have a little red filter on top of it. So this makes perfect sense. Uh, and then we get to see some characters that we hadn't seen much in the first issue, Wily Cat and Wild Kid. Uh, they are Lionel's. They're of the same age of Lionel, uh, but they didn't grow up right. Lionel became an adult overnight, and it's kind of funny to hear them argue about that. I think their designs are a little bit updated, which makes it seem really cool. But also their dialogue is just very funny. I mean, they're still teenagers. Um, I don't have any preview pages for anything that's going on with the mutants or Mumra and all that, but please believe me that Drew Moss is doing a really good job capturing the how threatening Mumra should be. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for I Heart Skull Crusher. This is number one. This is a new book from Boombox, which is an imprint of Boom Studios. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Josie Campbell, illustrated by Alessio Sono, colors by Angel de Santiago, letters by Jim Campbell. Uh, Very excited for this. I knew very little of this. I saw a preview on probably on TikTok or something, and I knew that I had to move this up in my reading queue as we did reviews for the week. So let me give you a quick synopsis. We'll talk more about this fantastic number one debut. In this book, 18-year-old Trini would do anything to compete in her favorite sport, screaming paintball, aspiring to the heights of her longtime favorite hero, Skull Crusher, but she can't do it alone. Uh, her and a gaggle of misfits is just what she needs to cross the American wasteland and battle the in Queen Mob's deadly tournament. With Trini's dreams of being just like Skullcrusher on the line, does she and her friends have what it takes to win a coveted spot on Skullcrusher's undefeated team? Um, I'm gonna just tell you right now, this has very much of a manga influence. To me, it really feels like that. I don't know much, like I don't know much about the influences from the creative team, but I can just tell like there's all the tropes there. We have this new sport that is created in this post-apocalyptic world. We have some really cool designs, character designs, and also just like overall the art is very dynamic, very much in your face. Big bright lights, big expressions, and of course there's a lot of fun and a lot of heart. Boombox is, I believe, geared towards younger readers than the regular Boom Studios comics. So this makes perfect sense. And even then, even so, like I still had a lot of fun reading this. So let me pull up some of the preview art here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you look at all these facial expressions, the zooming in on the eyes, the rapid cuts between panels, uh, I just love little Trini's face as she sees Skull Crusher for the first time. Even the dialogue, she says, she fell in love with the game, with the crowd, and with Skull Crusher. So cool, right? I think the game, even that's happening in the background, it's like almost secondary to everything that's going on. But yeah, it's very, very cool. Then we catch up with Trini as she's a little bit older. She's definitely a troubled youth. She's kind of all alone and down in the dumps. And it looks like most of the people are also kind of suffering through this. So I think Campbell manages to do a lot of this world building very efficiently, where we'll have, and of course with the art team, bringing in some of these panels, some of these explanations. There's a little bit of dialogue that Trini has with two skulls that are her parents who have passed away, uh, which is very, very wild concept. And yeah, things from there. We hope they get better and get easier for training, but we'll just have to stay tuned and see how things play out. But I'm very excited. I want to see the game. I want to see what the game actually looks like. I want to see more of the people that we meet. There's a reluctant coach, which is a very much of an anime. If you've ever seen any sports manga or anime, like that's a big trope. So, like I said, I think this book has a lot of that influence. So I think you're gonna enjoy it. I think you're gonna enjoy it for sure. Great character designs, fun dialogue. Like this was a home run from the get go. I don't know if they have home runs in this sport, but to me, this book itself was a home run. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Petrolhead number 5. This is the conclusion of the first arc. Two of my favorite books ongoing, wrapping up their first arc this week. This and Transformer. So let's talk more about Petrolhead and the creative team behind it. We have a story by Rob Williams, Pipar doing art, covers, colors, letters, graphic design, everything else on the book. Pipar's taken care of. So kudos for doing something so amazing. I just can't wait to see what's gonna come next. But these first 5 issues have been such a joy to like experience and talk about and review. This book really literally came out of nowhere for me. I didn't even know. I hadn't even heard of Pipar, the artist. I have read a little bit of Dread, so Rob Williams was a name that definitely came to mind. But very excited to have discovered some amazing, amazing comic creators. So in this issue, the way out of the smog zone is blocked. The O and his RoboCops have tracked down Lupa, and Supercar Star cannot be outdriven. Hybrid has lost his head. There's no way out of the O zone. It's the finale of Petrolhead's thrilling first arc. Can he find one last cheat mode? Um, so that all kind of makes sense once you read the book. Petrolhead, we begin with a flashback to a story in the past where Petrolhead, there's this challenge about jumping, jumping off at a really high velocity. Of course, Petrolhead has a really big car. The people they don't, the robot talking about it doesn't think he's going to be able to do it. Nobody really believes in him, but he finds a way to kind of cheat his way into doing what he said he was going to do, which is really fun. And then from there we jump over. There's a one-page interlude which I think it's there for comedic purposes, but I think it also may be setting up some clues for the future. Um, I don't know. Like I laughed when I read it because it's a few panels that look very similar, but there are changes. So as I was looking at them, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Did something just happen that I missed?" So hopefully we'll see more of that. We know that Dave took a big hit. Dave's the little bird. He took a big hit last issue, but these are robots. So I mean, I don't know. Is he dead? Is he not? Um, and then Lupa has she gets a tempting offer, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. And then obviously this all has to come down to probably one last race. Pipar does a very cool double page spread. I don't have it in the previews, but you'll get to see it. It's later on in the book. And yeah, if this is the way we're gonna end the first arc, I can't think of just a better way to conclude uh, what we've done in this world so far. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As I mentioned, we start with a story of the past. I love how annoying this robot is. I don't know how robots can have a smug face, but this one definitely does, which is really funny. I love just looking at the city from the past. I just really love looking at all the little details. Like you see the rings for the obstacle course, the ramp that you need to go through. It almost feels like somebody's playing with their Hot Wheels. Um, and then of course we have uh, you know Petrolhead. Nothing ever escapes the eye, right, of the city. The ozone is always being somebody's always watching. So that's really interesting. But I just love all the little details. Love this conversation. It's pretty funny. And then here we have a few clues of like, okay, how Dave came to be. So hopefully that means that not all hope is lost when it comes to our little bird friend. Um, yeah, this was a very satisfying conclusion to the first arc, but it also left me very excited for whatever may come to this book from this book. I think this is going to be a really cool collection as well. I hope that there's some additional stuff in the back, like some really nice back matter. I think that'd be really cool because I can't imagine that there's so many like character designs and then just a lot of world building that we could explore in some back matter. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Transformers number 6. This is a new book from Image Skybound. This is also the end of the first arc. So let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written and with art by Daniel Warren Johnson, Mike Spicer on colors, Russ Wooten on letters, so as I mentioned, this sixth issue finishes the first arc in this new Transformers run. This will also be, for now, the last issue where we have Daniel Warren Johnson's interiors. Jorge Corona will replace Daniel Warren Johnson on the art duties, only on the art duties. Warren Johnson will continue to write the book going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. In this issue, as I mentioned, end of story arc. One will stand, one will fall. The Autobots versus the Decepticons. This is it, and someone isn't going to survive. Um, this was a fantastic book, fantastic way to close out uh, the first arc. It brings full circle everything that we've been seeing, all the family drama and emotions that has come around, the interactions, the relationships between all the human participants and the Autobots. The Decepticons continue to raise hell. All that being delivered by some of the coolest art you can ever imagine. So let's go take a look at some of the preview art. We'll talk more about this book. As I mentioned, these are the three opening pages of this issue. And of course, we see here tying us back all the way to the first issue, right? Uh, we know that he lost his son in war, in battle. So here we are. There is, Sparky's still in the hospital. Um, we just don't know what's going to end up happening. Fuck. So, what does the future hold for this alliance between the Autobots and the humans, and who will make that sacrifice? That's what this issue is all about. But I want to go over some of the details that Daniel Warren Johnson just really, really highlights here. It is incredible how he makes you feel like these robots are really like they're suffering in their faces, which is weird. Like this is a machine, but Daniel Warren Johnson manages to capture that. All these dynamic action scenes. We see here Cliff Jumper driving around and Carly taking over just to kind of stop them from going headfirst into the danger. And of course, Starscream just being the villain that he is. I love this big old sound effects, the crack as he kicks him in the face. Optimus Prime doing whatever he can. I do want to highlight this is my favorite panel from that page. Devastator. Just you can see the enormity of the size differential between the rest of the Transformers, and you can even barely make out Sparky right at the bottom. Yeah, so much detail that's gone into this. Also, the fist being like showing the vibration of the force really just makes it feel very dynamic, makes the comics feel alive. And then as they make it to the arc, not everyone goes in there, and this panel of Optimus Prime just being grabbed by the leg, very much like if you remember from Loki and the Avengers, how when the Hulk grabbed them, very much just kind of being swung around like a toy, which is kind of what some of us did as kids too, right? So love the big sound effect when they all start firing on him and he brings the fist down again, and then RC and everybody else worried about him. Of course, they make it into the arc, but Ratchet is captured. I just once again, I love when Daniel Warren Johnson incorporates like the big sound effects as part of like in front of the picture, behind the picture. Like, it doesn't matter where he uses them. He just finds a way to really make that stuff come to life. This was a great issue, very emotional. Like I said, there's a big sacrifice later on, but it sets up very quite nicely, I think, the future of the series, and I'm very excited to see where we go from there. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Napalm Lullaby #1. This is a new book from Image Comics from the Giant Generator imprint. Let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Rick Remender with art by Ben Gall, letters by Rose Wooten, a plethora of really cool covers that you'll see some at the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. So I'm very happy to see this team back together. I really, really enjoy them working together. I think that they have a really special relationship when it comes to creating just like books that are really cool. I don't know, like they feel kind of like very edgy, very out there, very in your face about it. But I overall really enjoy them. I think both Remender and Bengal work very well together. So the best-selling creative duo of Rick Remender and Bengal reteam for Napalm Lullaby, an all-new ongoing dystopian epic with a special double-length first issue. This was a long episode, but it didn't feel long. It felt like it was very well paced. There's a really interesting opening, kind of like prologue, uh, that very much homages like a big thing in superhero comics. You'll probably, you'll once you get to it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But then it kind of switches over to its own very unique style. Very cool storytelling, like I said, very fast paced. Not a lot of dialogue, but a lot of really cool dynamic action. That's what I really enjoyed. The lines are very light. They're bright colors. There's, of course, it's been also like cool character designs. And I think this book leaves us with a fantastic hook at the end. So let me give you the synopsis for the book. A child with unimaginable power is raised to believe he is God by a cult of zealots, utterly confident in the moral authority of the religion. The magnificent leader has imposed his will on humanity and created the ultimate theocracy. Join them or be cast out to suffer with the masses. Uh, that's a very interesting concept and nothing that you would understand just from the cover, which was really interesting. Let's take a look at some of the preview art here. And as you can see here, this is a little prologue that I was talking about. We get to see here these people that are very religious. Of course, you can kind of tell by their dialogue, their protest, the little subtle hints in their truck. There's this book isn't subtle at all. Actually, it's very much in your face. And you see this gigantic explosion. Something's going on. Uh, and what is that? What has dropped from the skies? What is this target that they're coming for? And what happens when the wrong people find it? That's kind of the end of the prologue there. So that's very, very interesting all the way to begin. So, yeah, as I mentioned, this book, fast paced. I think I'm going to check out issue #2. And then from there, I'll decide if this is something that I want to read in the trade. Because, like I said, it's very fast paced, but a lot is happening. So, my only concern is that I'll forget about everything that's going on just because I'm reading so many things and doing like monthly comics is definitely a a work in like making sure that you remember the threads and the through lines of all these stories. So that'll be very interesting. So we'll talk more about that later on. I'll probably talk about this on our next live as well. So let me know if you have read this book, though. What do you think about it? Let me know which cover you picked up. As I mentioned, there's some really cool ones. There's one by Daniel Warren Johnson that I'm gonna try to track down. I don't know where he finds the time to do variant covers. So, as always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.